Welcome to LoadRunner 9. LoadRunner 9 introduces a new method for analyzing load test results, the Service Level Agreement, or SLA. You can set SLA goals for your load test when you create the scenario in the controller or in analysis before you analyze the load test results. The Analysis Summary Report displays the load test results in relation to whether they conform to or violated the defined SLA goals. This representation of the load test results helps to pinpoint performance problems. To understand this feature better, let's define an SLA. We'll define an SLA for a new scenario in the controller. Later, when we view analysis, we will compare the load test results against the thresholds that we defined in the SLAs. First, let's create a new scenario that will run the flight demo script, which includes some transactions. In the controller, we define SLAs in the Service Level Agreement pane located in the top right corner of the design view. Click the New button to open the SLA wizard, which will guide us through the steps for defining different SLA goals for our load test scenario. The first page asks us to select the measurement for which we want to define the SLA. There are two types of measurements: those examined over user-defined time intervals, and those examined over the whole scenario. You can define one SLA for each measurement. In this demonstration, we will create an SLA for average transaction response time. The transaction page that opens lists the transactions contained in the script that we selected for our scenario. We want to select the transactions that will most impact our load test scenario. Let's select Login and Order Flight. For each transaction, we can select load criteria, such as the number of running vusers or the number of hits per second, and watch how various ranges of these criteria affect the average transaction response time and thus affect the goals of our SLA. Let's see how the number of running vusers affects the transaction response time of the transactions we selected. And let's watch the impact of less than 10 running vusers on the transaction response time, as well as how 10 or more running vusers affect it. Now we will select the threshold values for our SLA. In the Thresholds page, the transactions that we selected are listed, and we can enter threshold values per the load criteria ranges that we selected. Let's set the same threshold values for both transactions. For each transaction, let's define the thresholds as follows. When there are less than 10 running vusers, the transaction response time should not exceed 10 seconds. And when there are 10 or more running vusers, the transaction response time should not exceed 20 seconds. Since we are setting the same threshold value for both transactions, we can fill in the values in the table in the lower section of the page, and then apply these values to all the transactions simultaneously. Under less than 10 running vusers, we enter 10, and under 10 or more running vusers, we enter 20. When we click the Apply to All Transactions button, these values are entered for each transaction listed in the first table. The last page of the wizard informs us that the SLA was successfully defined. When we close the wizard, the SLA that we defined appears in the SLA pane. We can view or edit its details by selecting it and clicking the Details or Edit button respectively. This demonstration has shown you how to use LoadRunner's SLA feature to define a goal for your load test. To learn more about defining SLAs, see the HP LoadRunner Controller User Guide.